Now on BBC One, the BBC News with Clive Myrie.
Today at 6, the Queen's coffin is now lying in state in the Palace of Westminster for the public to pay its final respects. It follows a solemn procession from Buckingham Palace with a horse-drawn gun carriage bearing Her Majesty. Walking behind her children and grandchildren, as well as other members of the royal family led by King Charles. Thousands of people witnessed the procession, some overcome by the emotion of the moment. And this is the scene at Westminster Hall, where the Queen's coffin will remain for 4 days before her state funeral next Monday. As many as 400,000 people are expected to file past the coffin in a final act of mourning.
It'll be kind of a good closure then as well to just see her, you know, and also just to, I don't know, give something back.
Also on the programme, President Zelensky visits his troops after retaking thousands of square miles of territory from Russian forces. And the rate of inflation dips slightly, but the worst may still lie ahead.
And stay with us here on BBC News, where we will bring you continuing coverage of events plus analysis from our team of correspondents in the UK and around the world.
Good evening. The Queen's coffin is now lying in state in the Palace of Westminster after a final journey from Buckingham Palace witnessed by tens of thousands of people along the route. She was accompanied by King Charles and his sons, as well as other members of the royal family, walking behind the horse-drawn gun carriage bearing Her Majesty. The coffin, draped in the royal standard, will now lie in state in Westminster Hall for the next 4 days before a state funeral. In the last hour, members of the public have been allowed to file past to pay their respects. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell has been following the day's events.
In a setting that is so familiar, where so often and so recently there has been celebration, today an event of the greatest solemnity. On the pavements around the palace and along the Mall, spectators were quiet and still. At 22 minutes past 2, the cortege stepped off. A field gun sounded, and the great bell known as Big Ben tolled. The coffin of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II was brought from Buckingham Palace, where it had rested for a final night with her family. The coffin was borne on a gun carriage. On the coffin rested a wreath and the imperial state crown. Walking behind the coffin, the King, with his siblings, the Princess Royal, the Duke of York, who was not in uniform, and the Earl of Wessex. And in the row behind, Princes William and Harry, walking together 25 years after they'd followed the coffin of their mother to her funeral. The military detachments marched with their arms reversed. The cortege passed along the length of the Mall, dressed on either side with Union flags. As the coffin went past, from spectators, respectful applause. From Horse Guards, the cortege passed through the archway and on to Whitehall. On past the cenotaph where for so many years as Queen she had led the nation's mourning. Now that nation with others mourns her. As the cortege approached Parliament Square and the Palace of Westminster, the applause from the pavements swelled. Many of those who were watching had travelled from afar, feeling an overwhelming obligation to be present, each wanting to be part of this moment in the nation's history and leaving with a precious memory.
Seeing the Queen on that carriage was just unbelievable, and it brings it all home that she's now gone, and we won't see her again.
I definitely felt personally touched. It was a very memorable experience and a memory that I'll cherish.
I have to be honest, I was so focused on the coffin that I didn't actually end up seeing the royals following her behind, because I was just, wanted to see the Queen go.
Outside Westminster Hall, the bearer party from the Grenadier Guards took the Queen's coffin on their shoulders. Other members of the royal family were there, watching on the left the Duchess of Sussex. The coffin, covered in the royal standard and surmounted by the Queen's crown, was placed with care on the catafalque.
O God, the Maker and Redeemer of all mankind, grant us, with thy servant Queen Elizabeth and all the faithful departed, the sure benefits of thy Son's saving passion and glorious resurrection.
For the royal family, it's clear that the loss of the Queen is still being felt keenly. For all the stoicism, that quality that she represented in abundance, it's plain that some, the blood family and those who knew her over the years, are feeling very real grief. But now the late Queen has one final duty. Into Westminster Hall came the first watch of the vigil. The ceremonial bodyguard of the monarch and officers from the household cavalry, who will stand at the 4 points of the catafalque as the lying in state begins, and the people of Britain and beyond have their chance to pay their final respects to their late Queen.
Nick, the scenes today have been quite extraordinary. So many people stretching for miles wanting to say a final goodbye.
Yes, I wonder, whether we are going to see this anything on this sort of scale or of this intensity again. These are images of immense power. The procession this afternoon, and now, as you say, the lying in state. These are the latest pictures now from Westminster Hall, and I've been watching them over the past hour, and I think so many people come into Westminster Hall from outside, and they're really rather awestruck, first of all, in this ancient hall and this really extraordinary sight. The raised catafalque, the coffin, the imperial state crown, and the yeoman warders, or the gentlemen at arms, and the household cavalry with their heads bowed and their arms reversed. And there are young people, there are people, I think we can say, from every walk of life. There are people from, I imagine, from around the United Kingdom and from beyond. And people are bowing, some of them are saluting, some of them are weeping. And every one of these people, we know that they've queued. The queue at the moment, I think, is nearly 3 miles long. Every one of these people, every individual on a private and personal mission to pay their respects.
Indeed. Nick, many thanks. Nick Witchell, our royal correspondent. Well, let's get more now on the crowds queuing to file past the Queen's coffin in Westminster Hall. Rita Chakrabarti is outside the Palace of Westminster for us this evening. Rita.
Clive, I'm here in Victoria Tower Gardens, which is just next to the Palace of Westminster and to Westminster Hall, where, as Nick Witchell said, the Queen's coffin is lying in state. And this is the final section for the long queues of public mourners, which stretch back as far as the eye can see. It's such a British sight in a way, given our nation's fondness for queuing. Well, these people will have been waiting for many hours, but there's only patience and good humour. And the people behind me should be able to get into the security zone they'll have to go through soon. Our correspondent Lucy Manning has spent the day speaking to some of those who've been lining up to pay their respects.
Traditionally British, the Queen and queues, stretching miles down the River Thames, past the Houses of Parliament, the London Eye, towards Tower Bridge, in its own way, magisterial, across the riverbank, where the Queen lies in state. We first met Vanessa on Lambeth Bridge on Monday. She has been here ever since, more than 50 hours, number one in the queue.
I'm happy that I'm going to be the first person when they're going to be opening the Westminster Hall to pay the respect. But it's going to be a sad moment.
And when you get in now, what do you think your thoughts will be?
I don't know what to expect. Saying some prayers in my heart for her peaceful rest and to say thank her for her great service.
Those at the front had camped overnight, braved the heavy rain and cold last night, but they have formed a community, good spirits, all with one aim, to have the chance of a final goodbye. Number 22 in the queue, 85-year-old Michael slept here last night, waiting 27 hours.
Because she's lovely. And I'm in love with her. I think everybody is. She's amazing, that woman. There'll not be another one like her.
What do you think your thoughts will be when you finally get to file past the coffin?
I'll probably get very upset. I am now. I'm feeling emotional. She means a lot to us.
Aisling, a former army major, and daughter Rosie joined the queue at 7 this morning. And why did you want to come down today, Rosie?
Because I think it's good we say goodbye to the Queen before she goes up there.
I think it's really important for history to be tangible. I think the memory of being here and doing something as important as the lying in state will just, is something worth sitting around and queuing for.
Bless these people in the queue. Help them to keep warm.
On his way to pray with the royal family, the Archbishop of Canterbury stopped here. When Churchill lay in state in 1965, one writer described how there were now two rivers in London. One is made of people, he wrote. Nearly 60 years later, that river has returned and it will flow 24 hours night and day until perhaps up to 500,000 people have had their moment in front of the Queen's coffin. At 4 o'clock, an hour before the doors opened, they let the crowd stream across Lambeth Bridge towards Westminster Hall. The queue can stretch for 10 miles. So far, it's nearly a third of its full length. It is moving well, though. And the public were finally allowed in to see their Queen. Vanessa was the first to pay her respects. Michael not far behind. After their long wait, some short moments of reflection. After all, how do you contemplate what the Queen has done? Her Majesty back with her people. Lucy Manning, BBC News.
Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, Transport for London is warning of an unprecedented pressure on the capital's public transport system as hundreds of thousands of people descend on London to pay tribute to the Queen and to be here, caught up in the emotion in the run-up to Her Majesty's state funeral. Our correspondent Jeremy Cook has been talking to people who've travelled from far and wide to witness this historic occasion in person.
Up on the farm in Weardale.
They've eaten all me red, white and blue flowers.
Anita's total dedication to the monarchy,
A little shrine at the moment for the condolence book,
is the stuff of local legend.
It's who I am, it's part of my life, and it does define me. My obsession with the history of the monarchy, it really does.
It's 260 odd miles to London. No problem.
I will be waiting in that queue. Mind, I need to take a good coat because it's freezing in London on a night. It's colder than Towler.
In this corner of England, it's a magnet for royal fans, and now the starting point for the journey south. Lewis is 13 years old.
I've never been to London before, and I didn't really want to go this way, but I always said I will be at the Queen's funeral whenever she does eventually pass on, and I'm going to keep that promise.
In Hull, the planning feels like a military operation.
8:35 morning is the train, so basically we want to be there about 8 o'clock, don't we? Whatever happens, we've got to...
Veterans preparing their trip.
Them tubes are going to be full of people, aren't they? We've got to try and stay together.
To honour the Queen, they proudly served as their Commander-in-Chief.
The Queen is the gaffer, if you like. The Queen is the boss. We need to go. We need to stand there and say, look, we're your mum. We're with you.
The Forces family are going back down to say to the Queen, we're here for you, and this is our goodbye to you.
We're going to represent every veteran that can't get down there. Yeah, and we will say goodbye on their behalf.
Anita's already on the train. A long journey ahead. Time to reflect.
The last trip to see the Queen. It's her final journey, it's my final journey. To see her anyway. No more Queen's speech at Christmas.
People across the West Midlands are continuing to pay tribute to Her Majesty.
The focus is on London.
We're going to have to queue all the way over this bridge and all the way around here.
But the loss of the Queen is felt in every community.
What's the river in London?
It's called the River Thames.
It is, yes.
From Birmingham, Emily will be taking Freddie and James to the capital.
It really is a part of history, and I think particularly for the boys, there's just no better way for them to learn about it than actually experiencing it.
The wait will be long.
It will be long. But is it important for you to pay your respects to the Queen?
Yep.
Are you looking forward to it?
Yep.
Horse Guards parade this morning, and Anita's arrived early, along with others from every corner of the realm.
You made it? Yes. It's a long way from the farm.
It is a long way from the farm.
A sombre celebration for the life of the Queen. Their Queen. Her Queen.
We've got her here, so I can't even become to describe the devastation.
Jeremy Cook, BBC News.
Well, people continue to fill up the waiting zones, and as you can see here in these pictures, there's a zigzag area on this side of the river just before people get close to the Palace of Westminster behind me. This is an operation that's due to last 4 more full days, so there are preparations for a queue that could stretch for as long as 10 miles in all. And you can see where it starts on the other side of the river and then over Lambeth Bridge, which is ahead of me. The atmosphere here is quiet, it's respectful, and people have a lot of stamina. Many have been here for many hours, but we've heard no complaints. For people here, it's a sacrifice that they are willing to make to be part of this momentous national occasion and to say a final farewell in person to the Queen. Well, I'll be back with you later in the programme, but for now, let's return to the studio.
Rita, thank you. My colleague Rita Chakrabarti there. So, what should people who joined the queue expect? Well, the lying in state began a little over an hour ago and will continue round the clock until 6:30 next Monday morning, the day of the Queen's funeral. The queue is expected to stretch for several miles from the Albert Embankment following the River Thames through to Southwark Park. Now, wristbands will be given out once people join the queue, but there's a warning: the wait could be several hours, possibly even overnight, to see the Queen's coffin. Airport-style security will be in place once visitors have crossed Lambeth Bridge and reached the Palace of Westminster before entering Westminster Hall. There'll also be a separate accessible route highlighted here in purple, beginning at Tate Britain. Local venues and museums, including the National Theatre and Shakespeare's Globe, will stay open for extended hours for refreshments and comfort breaks. There will also be more than 500 portaloos along the route, but people are being asked to respect the dignity of the event and remain silent and dress appropriately while inside the Palace of Westminster. Filming, photography and the use of mobile phones won't be allowed inside. Well, the BBC is offering a continuous 24-hour view of the Queen's lying in state for those who won't be able to pay their respects in person and can't make it to London, or who are physically unable to queue. The service is available on the BBC homepage, the BBC News website and app, the iPlayer on BBC Parliament and the red button. It is 20 minutes past 6. Our top story this evening. Queen Elizabeth is lying in state after being escorted from Buckingham Palace by King Charles and other members of the royal family walking behind her coffin. This is the scene at Westminster Hall, where people are filing past to pay their respects ahead of a state funeral next Monday.
And stay with us here on BBC News, where we will bring you continuing coverage of events plus analysis from our team of correspondents in the UK and around the world.
We're going to move on to other news now, and President Zelensky says Ukrainian forces have retaken more than 3,000 square miles of territory in the east of the country. Moscow confirmed it had withdrawn from some key towns, saying the retreat would allow its troops to regroup. Russia still holds around a fifth of Ukraine, but President Zelensky has vowed to drive all Russian forces out of the country. So, how surprising is his counter-offensive? Well, our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, is here with his analysis. Jeremy.
Thank you, Clive. Well, Russia has suffered a serious defeat. This is Ukraine's biggest victory since they stopped the Russians at the gates of Kiev back in March. At the beginning of this month, the red area was occupied by Russia, and this is how it looks now. Ukraine has recaptured an area around 4 times the size of Greater London. The Ukrainians have shown that they can mount an agile, well-planned offensive. Now, it started with deception in the south. Ukrainian forces shelled important bridges, positioned soldiers, and talked about attacking along the Black Sea coast. The Russians took the bait, moving some of their best units into the area. So Ukraine sacrificed one military virtue, surprise, to gain it in the far north. When they attacked near Kharkiv, thin Russian defenses broke. You can see from the amount of equipment that they abandoned that it was a rout, not a fighting retreat, or as the Kremlin claimed, a redeployment. More evidence of low morale. It was also another Russian intelligence failure. They were taken by surprise. In contrast, NATO, especially the US, has given Ukraine the edge in intelligence, with real-time information and the weapons to exploit it. Satellite-guided missiles have destroyed distant Russian command centers and supply dumps, eroding Russia's already inadequate capacity to run the war. Ukraine's President Zelensky has been touring some of the recaptured territory. He needed a victory to show less hawkish NATO allies that new Western weapons might even win the war. He wants more of them, and soon. Russia still occupies around 20% of the country, including areas it seized in 2014, circled here in black. President Putin will not consider himself beaten. He will try to hit back hard. He might issue more nuclear threats, which it would be foolish to ignore. On the front lines, it looks as if the Russians are not clear what they're fighting for. Ukrainians have no doubts. For them, it's all about national survival. Clive.
Jeremy, many thanks. Jeremy Bowen, our international editor there. Now, the rate of inflation has dipped slightly, driven by a fall in the price of petrol and diesel. Official figures show the rate at which prices are rising is down from 10.1% in July to 9.9% in August. Our economics editor, Faisal Islam, has the very latest.
For once, not all prices are surging. For this Essex food and drink retailer, however, there is little respite. Her cost of delivery alone is now £14 rather than £8, and that's just for sending 2 bottles of her locally sourced drinks.
It's an absolute welcome relief to have a small decrease in the cost of fuel, but actually it isn't making that much of an impact because we've had to put up with that increase for so long that it's had a cumulative effect. I think the impact is devastating. We are all fighting to survive, and in the past few months alone, we've seen so many small businesses go under.
While prices in supermarkets, clothes shops and factories kept inflation close to its 40-year highs, the impact of the fall in world oil markets made up for that. The dip in inflation was driven by petrol prices falling 7.5% over the month of August, or 14 pence a litre on average. But food prices, especially milk, cheese and eggs, were up 1.5% just in the month, the worst August in 27 years of this measure. Just a few weeks ago, the forecourt signs were displaying a price of close to £2 per litre for petrol. A reminder that these things do come down eventually, but that isn't happening across the economy. Indeed, especially not for crucial commodities such as food and domestic energy bills. So although we are closer to the peak than many had forecast, we aren't there yet, and inflation overall remains very, very high. Exactly where inflation goes from here may depend on further detail next week from the new Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng on energy, tax cuts and borrowing, and from the Bank of England, widely expected to go ahead with another bumper rise in interest rates. Faisal Islam, BBC News.
Government support for businesses struggling with skyrocketing energy bills may not arrive until November. The Prime Minister, Liz Truss, had promised to provide equivalent support for companies when announcing help for households. But how the scheme will work hasn't been made public. Our business editor Simon Jack is here. Simon, it is proving terribly complicated working out a scheme for business compared to ordinary consumers.
Yeah, there is no cap for business. There's no single unit of cost for gas and electricity to generate an overall bill that you would charge to everyone. And because there's no cap, there's no date when people start paying new bills. Some people on long fixed term contracts, some big businesses have their own energy buying arms. So yes, very difficult to do, which is why we're not expecting any more detail till next week. That detail of the mechanism will be then go to the energy companies. They'll then talk to their customers to try and figure out what support they will get, which they may not get until November. So very difficult for businesses to get some visibility. And it's very important because the government has essentially written a blank cheque to protect consumers and businesses from these skyrocketing bills in order to prevent a recession. But it is very hard. And remember, the business protection will only last for 6 months rather than 2 years for households. Now, it is very difficult for a business to hire, to invest, to sign a lease, in short, to grow, which is what the government plan is, to grow the economy while you have this cloud of uncertainty hanging over them. Now, the business groups welcome the intervention, but say 6 months is really not enough for businesses to plan, and we need a long-term economic plan if businesses are going to help in the effort to stave off that recession.
Sure. OK. Simon, thank you. Simon Jack, our business editor. Now, let's return to Rita with the crowds queuing to see the Queen's coffin lying in state at Westminster Hall. Rita.
So many people here, Clive, and the queue is moving quickly, and I'm joined by 4 people who've been queuing for about 6 hours, haven't you? Penny, Katrina, Jack and Cam. Katrina, why are you here?
Absolutely had to pay my respects to our dear departed Queen, and I came for the Queen Mother's lying in state and just felt I really, really had to come again. And I've been amazed, so lovely meeting people in the queue. Never met before, and it's just been such a friendly atmosphere. So worthwhile. Definitely worth 6 hours.
Cam, how have you found it?
It's been very special. I lost my mum in May this year. I feel the sadness and the condolences for the royal family as a family. I just wanted to be here to pay my respects on behalf of my family. So
it brings back some of those feelings.
Of course it does, everything. And I can see when King Charles is smiling, he has a moment, and then he sees the coffin, I think that's when he crumbles. And that's special.
Penny, what does it mean to you to be here?
I couldn't have put it better than the other two, to be fair. I just had to pay my respects. I was brought up a few miles up the road from the Royal Sandringham Estate, so and I live here in central London now, so it just had to be done, pay my respects. She was a great lady. I was a Queen's guide. She's been a beacon to me all my life.
And Jack, you're not very far from getting into Westminster Hall now. It's going to be an important moment.
It's emotional. I think she's the greatest monarch we've ever had. I'd waited for a month
to be honest. But yeah, she's amazing, and thoughts with King Charles.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. And as they were saying, these are 4 people who've made friends today, and I expect that story will be replicated along the queue. Back to you, Clive.
Indeed, Rita. Thank you for that. Rita Chakrabarti there. Those are the latest pictures we have from Westminster Hall. Now, time to look at the weather news. And Simon King is here. Hi, Simon.
Clive, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, we saw some lovely skies there in London earlier on today. Some sunshine broke through above Buckingham Palace. Now, through this evening, we're going to keep some clear skies, actually. It could turn quite chilly, particularly around northern areas of the UK. Just a bit of cloud coming in across eastern areas. Possibility of the odd shower there, but for most of us, it's going to stay dry. Temperatures holding up in double figures for England and Wales. But as I mentioned, quite chilly across the north, 3 Celsius in the northeast of Scotland. Now, Thursday starts off dry. Again, lots of sunshine around with those sunny spells. Possibility of a few showers again towards East Anglia, the southeast of England, just to the east of London. Showers for Northern Ireland and across Scotland on that rather brisk northerly wind. Temperatures here, 13, 14 degrees. Still 17, 19 Celsius. Quite pleasant in that September sunshine during tomorrow afternoon. But it is set to get colder as we go through the next few days. Look at these blues here on the air mass. They're filtering down across the UK, so all of us will notice that chillier feel. Quite a chilly start on Friday morning. Temperatures again down into single figures for many of us, just about double figures in the far south. But certainly you'll notice that chill, especially around the eastern coast of Scotland, eastern England, that rather brisk north-northwesterly wind. That'll bring some showers in across parts of Lincolnshire, down to the southeast of England. Otherwise, though, again, another dry day with some sunshine. Temperatures down to the southwest, 19 degrees, but look at that, 13 or 14 degrees along this North Sea coast. And of course, London is the focus over the next few days. If anyone's coming to pay their respects, at least it's going to stay dry for the queue with some sunny spells. It will turn quite chilly, and especially overnight, quite chilly as well. And that's really the scene for many parts of the UK as we go through in the weekend, into Bank Holiday Monday, and for the state funeral. Clive.
OK, Simon, thank you. Simon King. That's it. I'll be back at 10, but the news continues here on BBC One as we join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Have a very good evening.
Thank you and welcome to BBC London, where tonight crowds are queuing to see the Queen's coffin at Westminster Hall. We'll look ahead to the state funeral and wider implications for people living and working in the capital. Hello and good evening. You join me in Victoria Tower Gardens in the shadow of the Palace of Westminster, and you can probably see that there is a queue of people waiting to pay their final respects to the Queen lying in state. It is moving now, slowly moving, and we are close to the front of the queue. Behind me is the airport-style security people will need to go through before they can file past the coffin. The current wait estimated at the moment around 30 hours, and we will have more on that later in the programme. It's been a significant day here in the capital. This afternoon, central London came to a standstill as the Queen made her final journey from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall. Well, Frankie McCamley caught up with some of those who came to London to witness this historic occasion.
Arriving from Brighton and Surrey, the Fiander Marshall family, who have come to pay their respects.
My name's John Fiander. I'm the head of this lovely family with me. This is my wife Jeanette.
Hello.
These two are my daughters, and this is Nikki, that's Elizabeth, and this is my granddaughter Taryn.
What's made you come down and bring flowers?
We had to, for the love of the Queen. She was just a wonderful person. She was the mother of the nation and then the grandmother of the nation. We had to come.
And have you ever met the Queen? Did you ever have the opportunity to see her in person?
John was nearly run down by her.
Royal Car nearly ran me down in the floods in 1953 because I got my bike in the way, but we won't talk about that. That was the show.
They're joining many others on the walk from Victoria Station to Buckingham Palace. As we get closer, the crowds get bigger and bigger. Every hour, thousands and thousands of people are heading down Buckingham Palace Road, many from Victoria Station, doing the 5-10 minute walk. They then have to cross the road, go behind these barriers which are lining the streets. They'll then have to go through these huge, big temporary structures. And what the police are saying is if too many people arrive, they're going to have to close them down and stop letting people in. In front of Buckingham Palace, the queues begin, snaking around barriers, trying to keep crowds under control. At the front of all these queues, Nicola and her sister, royal event regulars.
We're used to standing and waiting.
Have you bought snacks? Have you bought food? Have you bought anything?
Yes.
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 Cups of tea?
No. Bottles of water.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Bottles of water and some cake.
So you've come prepared?
Yes.
Water and cake. Some, though, are struggling with the wait more than others. The Judd family are in for the long haul. They brought plenty of snacks and games to keep the children entertained.
Spiders and spouts, dinosaurs, and just chatting and catching up like you do, really. Yeah, it's fine. It's not too bad. It's not raining, so which is even better.
No, that's it. Thank God. And I mean, have you bought lots of food with you? Snacks?
Yeah, yes, picnic. Yeah, picnic in the cases.
A couple of suitcases full of food and drink. Yeah, so yeah, we're here for a long time. Yeah.
And when the time finally comes, Marchelle and her family, all the way from Missouri, get a glimpse of the Queen's coffin.
Surreal, if I can sum it up. Surreal.
It's pretty mesmerizing. It's overwhelming. It's like we're having an out-of-body experience.
No words to say. It's very touching. So it was an honor to be here for the occasion.
Alongside the honour and sadness, there is joy and happiness as everyone here makes their mark in the history books. Frankie McCamley, BBC London, Buckingham Palace.
Lots of generations of families there, and we've seen the sheer numbers of people coming into the capital grow, possibly unprecedented numbers on the day of the state funeral. So how will London's transport cope with its biggest ever challenge? Tom Edwards has been behind the scenes at Victoria Station.
Victoria Station, now one of the main gateways for those who want to pay their respects to the Queen.
Yeah, base to 5-1, your check is good, thank you.
Passenger numbers here have been steadily increasing.
It's getting busier, so a lot more customers who are not our regular travellers come in, so which means that they have a lot more questions in terms of where they want to go, which is the right exit.
So you go left and then left again.
Just
behind that glass screen, yeah.
These are so-called travel ambassadors.
It's coming here, they're coming here and on the other side, but one's just left. They're about every 15-20 minutes.
They're usually senior managers. Now they're helping people find their way.
Go about halfway down and then turn left up towards St James Park.
It's all about legacy for me. I've got family that have been part of Transport for London. I wanted to be a part of Transport for London, and events like this help you to really feel that you're a part of it.
I think for a lot of us, we want to be part of this. It's a really important moment for London. We want to ensure that the travel is the really easy part of their day. So wherever we can, we really believe passionately we can get out, give information to customers. We know London and we know the travel network, so we can make their journey that bit easier.
Some train operators say they'll put on more services, some at night, although the details are still being finalised. And passenger numbers, even at central London stations, are still some way from pre-pandemic levels. Transport operators say this is the biggest challenge they have ever faced, bigger than the Olympics. And the big issue is it's impossible to predict the size of the crowds. How busy do you think it is going to get?
It's very difficult to know how busy it's going to get. I mean, we're preparing for hundreds of thousands of people to come to London from all over the UK and beyond. So we know that our public transport network will be really busy. We'd ask customers wherever possible to avoid driving into London, but also we'd advise that please do check before you travel on our website or using our TfL Go app.
Tonight, TfL said the tube will run later on Monday. Big challenges are ahead, but London's transport wants to play its part. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
Alice Bandukarvi is with me now. We'll look ahead to Monday in just a moment, but we were hearing estimates of queues of around 30 hours, but people we've spoken to here, it hasn't been as long.
No, we've spoken to people who said that they arrived at 8:30 this morning and they're now virtually at the front of the queue, so it does seem to be moving.
So let's talk about Monday, because lots of people have been wanting to find out more details about the state funeral, and we learnt more last night.
That's right. Well, full details have yet to be confirmed and revealed by the government, but this is what we expect to happen. So of course the Queen's funeral takes place on Monday the 19th of September at 11 a.m. at Westminster Abbey, and that's of course where the Queen's coronation took place in 1953 and where she married Prince Philip in 1947. Now the Queen's lying in state will therefore end at 6:30 a.m. that morning on Monday, which will be a bank holiday as we know, and the Queen's coffin will be transported that short distance from Westminster Hall to Westminster Abbey by gun carriage, where the service will take place at 11 o'clock in the morning.
And people can watch that on large screens?
There will be big screens in the royal parks which will cover that service, and then after the service the Queen's coffin will be drawn in a walking procession from the Abbey to Wellington Arch at Hyde Park Corner via the Mall, and that's where crowds can gather to see it. Then it makes its final journey from Hyde Park Corner to Windsor by hearse. Now expect the royal hearse to travel west from Hyde Park, probably on the A4, so that whole route, which hasn't been confirmed yet, is likely to be the last place that you can see the coffin go past in person. And then the cortege will approach Windsor Castle via the Long Walk, and a committal service will then take place at St George's Chapel. Now of course all of that will be broadcast here on BBC One. It'll be streamed on the iPlayer and of course on BBC Radio.
Okay, Alice, for now, thank you. That is helpful information for anyone wanting to come into central London. But away from here, there are wider implications for many Londoners on the day of the funeral, which is also a bank holiday. Let's find out more with Tara in the studio.
Thanks, Riz. Well, of course, this will be a day like no other. Many supermarkets and large retailers have confirmed they won't open, as have most West End theatres. Some gyms and cinemas have also confirmed they'll close. Well, it's up to individual businesses if they remain open on Monday, but NHS operations and appointments are likely to be cancelled if they're not urgent. Well, with more on this, our health correspondent Carl Mercer, and tell us about the picture in London, Carl.
Yeah, you're right, there's going to be a lot of changes, as you've just detailed, and as Alice was saying, it's a bank holiday on Monday, so there will be changes, and it looks like most of the NHS in London is going into bank holiday mode, which means that most non-urgent appointments and operations will be cancelled. Although all the hospitals that I've spoken to today are saying urgent and emergency care will continue, and they say time critical stuff, maybe like cancer appointments or maternity appointments, will still go ahead. They're saying patients will be called, and they'll try and do catch up by running extra clinics and giving people appointments as soon as possible afterwards as well.
Just having a look on social media, some people really unhappy about this.
Yeah, they are, because we've had a lot of delays already because of the pandemic. People have had operations and appointments delayed. They're seeing more delays, but the point is that NHS staff are looking to have time off. It's a bank holiday, and I think the hospitals recognise that some staff might want to pay their own tributes to the Queen as well, so they want to give them time off.
And what about GPs?
Yeah, we heard earlier in the week they've been given permission to close, so I think there will be something of a mixed picture across London. Some will, some won't, but they have all been told that they've got to keep their urgent out of hours care still running, and also make sure that patients who take daily medicines do get supplies, because of course it is a bank holiday on Monday.
Thanks very much, Carl Mercer. Turning to some other news now. And the chair of the Met Police Federation, Ken Marsh, has said he's very concerned about the suspension of the firearms officer who shot dead Chris Cabba. Meanwhile, the family have said the officer should have been suspended sooner. The 24-year-old, who was unarmed, was killed by a single shot in Streatham Hill on the 5th of September. Some staff at Clarence House have been warned their jobs are at risk following King Charles III's accession to the throne. A spokesperson said some redundancies were unavoidable because of the change in role for the King. Clarence House said it will work to find alternative roles for employees. Well, that's it from me. Let's return to Riz.
Tara, thanks very much indeed. Yes, welcome back to Victoria Tower Gardens, close to Westminster Hall, where Her Majesty the Queen is lying in state, and the queues to file past her coffin. We were warned, weren't we, about long queues to come and pay their respects. If we just swing round, we're on the north side of the river. You can just see the queue. It then snakes all the way round and over the river. let's cross over the other side to the river where we can join Assad, who is in the queue. Hi there.
Hello, Riz. Yes, I'm here. It came as no surprise that the queue would be a long one to see the Queen lying in state in Westminster Hall. But what has surprised people is the speed at which the queue is just getting longer. I counted roughly, this is a rough rule of thumb, about 25, 30 people joining the queue every minute. You can see the queue. Well, this was the end of the queue when I came here not that long ago. The queue now goes much further back, but as you can see, it is moving. Some people have joined the queue not that long ago. Melanie, you've come from Bexley Heath, I understand.
Yes, that's
And you
right.
wanted to make the trip here to pay your respects. Tell us why.
Yes, I just wanted to pay my respects to the Queen, our lovely Queen, who served our country so well.
And the queue didn't put you off the fact that you are going, because we're at about 2 mile mark, you've got about a 4-hour wait.
No, it hasn't. Yes, it's a lovely evening, so we're lucky with regards to the weather.
Okay, and I'm going to speak to Melanie here beside you, who you were chatting to earlier, but you didn't know each other before you joined the queue.
No, we didn't. We literally were at Hyde Park Corner, and we both said, oh, we're going to the same place. I said, well, should we go together? So I literally joined from there.
And where have you come from today?
From Burnham. I'm part of the Burnham Beaches Division for Girl Guiding. So I've come up to pay my respects because she was patron to Girl Guiding UK for so many years.
And you're paying your respects and making friendships as well. I'm sure that's going to happen again and again today.
Absolutely. I've been here since 6:30 this morning on the Mall, and then I've come and joined the queue this evening.
It's incredible, and you can see the queues moving fairly quickly. Now, I know your place has gone down there, so I'll let you run over and get it. I'm going to try and grab some people here. Hello, we're live on BBC London television. Would you like to speak to us, sir? You're looking so fine in your outfit. You've come all this way. You've got roughly a 4-hour wait before you go and see the Queen lying in state. But this is something you wanted to do, sir?
Yes, it was a spontaneous decision. I just made it this afternoon. I thought I'd come out very quickly. I'd heard Cora Weaven's song on Radio 3, and then I suddenly thought, why not go out and join the queue?
And did you come from far today, sir?
I come from Stoke Newington.
From Stoke Newington. Well, I wish you well for the queue. Like I say, roughly about 4 hours to go, but lovely people all around you, so I'm sure the time will fly. Now, if you are coming along to join the queue, here's some tips for you. The government have put on a live tracker on YouTube. It's called Her Majesty the Queen's Lying in State Queue Tracker. That tells you exactly where the queue is at any given moment and how far it goes. So if you're coming along to join it, do take a look at that. The other thing the government advises is a list of what you should bring if you're joining the queue, and most importantly what you shouldn't bring, because you don't want to join this queue for hours and then get to the front and realise you're not allowed in to see the Queen's body lying in state. So to tell you what you should bring and what you shouldn't bring, here's Wendy Hurrell.
Members of the public will be able to file past the Queen's coffin as she lies in state at Westminster Hall. Hundreds of thousands of mourners are expected, with long queues likely. Here are some of the things to bear in mind. If you're joining the queue, you'll need suitable clothing, food and drinks to consume in the queue, although they'll need to be disposed of before security. A portable mobile phone charger, and any essential medication or equipment you need to keep with you. Step-free access is available for those who need it. There will be airport-style security. There is a comprehensive list of items not allowed. Large bags. Only small backpacks with a single zip will be allowed. Flasks or opaque water bottles. Clear water bottles are allowed. Flowers or other tributes were asked not to bring them. Sharp items or weapons. Camping equipment, including tents, folding chairs, coolers, hampers and sleeping bags. And no placards, banners, flags or advertising messages will be allowed. While filing past the Queen's coffin, people will be expected to turn their phone to silent, dress and behave respectfully, and photography of any kind is banned. The Queen will lie in state until 6:30 on Monday the 19th of September. Later that morning, the Queen's coffin will be taken in procession to Westminster Abbey, with her state funeral starting at 11 o'clock.
really helpful and useful information there. But it is worth at this point mentioning here that the BBC is offering a dedicated stream of the Queen's lying in state for those who want to pay their respects but maybe can't come into London or who are physically unable to queue. It's on the BBC homepage, BBC News website and app, on iPlayer, BBC Parliament and the red button. So no shortage of places to see it if you should so wish. Well, away from what's happening here in central London, there's been no shortage of tributes, including one family in their own unique way. Sharon Barber is with them in Hounslow.
Stand by, they've lost it.
Well, we were hoping to speak to Sharon Barber with a family in Hounslow, and the reason was, I might as well tell you, there was a huge mural that I think the whole family had painted together, and we were going to talk to the family, and it was their way of paying tribute, as so many people, families up and down the country and the capital have done in their own way. Well, let's head instead to Southend, because one choir there is having a special practice. Thomas McGill is with them, hopefully, and can tell us more.
I am indeed, Rage. Yes, I'm gate crashing the Southend Vox Choir this evening here in Essex. Liz is on the piano. Kate and the others are rehearsing. About 40 people are here tonight rehearsing. But the question is, why am I? Well, the choir was part of a huge celebration back in June to mark the Jubilee in Priory Park, along with lots of other performers. And it was a big event for them. And tonight, the choir is back together as one since Thursday, since the Queen died. Well, let's speak to Kate McHugh, the musical director. Kate, thank you for chatting to us. Just in hindsight, just reflect on how important being part of that big Jubilee celebration was.
Gosh, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful to be part of that celebration. Looking back, it was just such a momentous occasion. We had a brass band join us. We sung a complete repertoire of British music, and it was just one of those moments that we'll remember forever, I think, as a choir. It was so special.
Certainly a real tribute to her.
It really was a tribute to her, and we were so lucky to be joined by a huge amount of people from the local community. Hundreds and hundreds of people turned out, waving Union Jack flags, dancing around with us. I think she would have been very proud.
Well, I hope she got to see it.
Yeah.
Let's speak to some of those women who were actually on the stage that evening. Kate's getting back to rehearsing here. And first of all, we have got the lovely Jenny. Jenny, first of all, what was it like to be on stage that day, and what does the Queen mean to you?
Oh, well, it was a very emotional event for us. I think it was the first one that our local MP, new MP, and the Firth came to, and it was lovely to all be together and really celebrate such a momentous occasion. And I think the Queen has a little meaning to everyone, doesn't she?
And she's got a special meaning to you, very briefly.
When I was very young, as a young brownie, we went for a day trip to London, and we happened to be just passing Buckingham Palace as we realised that she was getting into the car and leaving. So we all did our brownie guide salute, and she waved especially to us, and it was a very special moment.
Honestly, since Thursday we've heard so many lovely stories like that from our viewers. It's been lovely. Well, Emily, we've already seen how music and singing has been an important part of today, and it's going to continue until Monday. You must see the power of music on a regular basis. What do you think people will get from singing and from the music we're going to hear?
Absolutely. Well, we know that music is a great way of bringing everybody together. We know that it releases endorphins, it makes you feel good. There's a reason why we've got hymns that we sing at funerals, even when it's a sombre occasion. It's a really lovely way for everybody to feel united and also feel good.
Fantastic. Well, in the last few minutes, in the last 30 minutes or so, the choir have just learnt that they are going to be part of a huge celebration with other choirs on Sunday evening, a commemoration. So Joe and Natalie, what's it going to be like to be part of that special moment on Sunday?
It will be incredibly special. I mean, as a choir, you get to do so many amazing things like this to honour really special occasions. Obviously a very sad occasion, but I think, with music you can bring people together and unite in that grief and be able to celebrate in a special way.
And I'm sure you feel the seen that, Lee?
Absolutely, we're honoured to be able to. We're a small community group, and we're honoured to be able to take part in the Southend City's celebration of the Queen's life.
Fantastic. Ladies, thank you so much, and gentlemen, for allowing us in this evening. Well, please stay with us until the end of tonight's programme, because we will be hearing them play us out with Jerusalem, and I've heard the choir rehearse it, and it really is quite special and quite moving. But for now, back to Riz in central London.
Thanks very much, Thomas. Yes, we will look forward to that. And back here in central London, if we just swing the camera around, we can see the queue to file past the Queen's coffin moving slowly. You might be able to hear someone, a volunteer there, just giving people advice what to do. At this point, they need to, make sure they have no liquids, etc. So this is the point at which they are getting very, very close to the airport-style security. And as we heard earlier, there are strict rules about what they can bring in with them and what they can wear. We can also see a bit of activity going on behind us here. And we've been speaking to people in the queue, and interestingly, some of them say, well, we came this morning, we've already been in, and they describe the atmosphere in the queue as, queue buddies, very, very friendly, very, very respectful, and I'm sure as it goes on for the next 4 days, we will be hearing much more from them. And on that note, can I just say thank you so much to any of you who have sent in your memories of the Queen. We have loved hearing and seeing your photos and videos. Do please keep them coming in. You can email us hello@bbclondon@bbc.co.uk. Hello, BBC London @bbc.co.uk. Well, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday I was standing with an umbrella. Today the sun has come out. Let's get a check on the weather with Elizabeth.
Riz, actually, it's Simon King here, but hello. Yeah, you're right. Yesterday, what a difference. We had that rain across London. Not very pleasant for those queuing yesterday. This morning started off rather cloudy as well, but that cloud broke up and we've had some sunny spells. It's been a lovely end to the day. And of course, now in London with those clear skies. Now, it is going to turn colder over the next few days. You can see this blue here on the air mass picture. That's just filtering southward across the UK. Higher pressure to the west, low pressure to the east, and that brings us a northerly wind. So that's what we'll notice over the coming days. But as we go through this evening and tonight, there'll be some cloud in the sky, but it should stay largely dry as we go into tomorrow morning. Not much going on really. Temperatures down to about 11 to 14 degrees Celsius. So still on the relative mild side. Now for tomorrow, again, there'll be a bit of cloud around in the morning, but that should break up and there'll be some sunny spells developing. You notice 1 or 2 showers just coming into the east of Greater London. I think for central London, it should remain dry. However, just be aware that we could well see 1 or 2 showers drifting in. Temperatures about 18 or 19 degrees Celsius. On into Friday, we've still got this area of high pressure to the west, low to the east. The isobars just a bit closer together on Friday, and that means it's going to be a little bit windier, and that wind, of course, is coming in from the north. So you'll probably feel a difference in the temperatures. But again, on Friday, looking at lots of sunshine across Greater London. 1 or 2 showers, they should just stay towards the east throughout the day. Temperatures though, look at that, they are lower, 15 to maybe 17 degrees Celsius. And of course, there's a lot of focus at the moment for London and of course that queue. It's looking dry in the outlook up into the bank holiday Monday and the Queen's State funeral. Temperatures by day, about 17 to 19 degrees Celsius. But as I mentioned, it'll be overnight where those temperatures could drop fairly low, so it might turn quite chilly. You might want to bear that in mind if you are going to be joining the queue.
Simon, thank you very much indeed for the weather there. And that is all from us this Wednesday evening, a stone's throw from Westminster Hall, where Her Majesty the Queen is now lying in state until her funeral on Monday. It has been an historic day here in the capital and one that will live long in the nation's memory. We leave you now with the sound of the Southend Vox Choir and their tribute to the Queen. Good night.
Walk upon England's